My highlight of 2024 has definitely been the UK-wide community programme, which is funded by the BIHR Foundation. There's been a couple of highlights for me this year. So in spring, we invited small community and voluntary groups to apply for free human rights awareness raising workshops. And that allowed us to we delivered 14 of those in the end, with over 200 people coming along and across a range of issues, including recovery from substance use, health and disability, and traveller rights, as well as lots of other kind of areas. And across those workshops, we saw lots of improvements to participants' kind of knowledge of human rights law and the confidence to use that in their lives and in their work. So that was really nice at the beginning of the year. And then since July, we've been co-designing human rights advocacy tools with 4 community groups, and we're launching those tools on Human Rights Day itself. So I think my favourite bit about that this year has been that we've been able to get out to see those community groups in person. So we've travelled to Belfast, Gloucestershire, Nottingham and South Wales, which has been really, really nice to actually kind of go and see people in person. And I'm really excited to see how these tools support the groups to know and claim their rights as they come out into the world, I suppose.
My highlight of the year is the hard copy resources project. The order form and guidelines on how to order went live in early June, restoring a service we provided in the past up to lockdown when we were office-based. Externally, we now have a tested system to receive orders from individuals for printed copies of our resources and post those to them. Internally, we have a small system for processing these orders, and we keep a record of the orders themselves and the resources order. This could help us later on to understand what the demand is and any gaps we need to fill. Also, we now have a default printing and posting service we can rely on for this work and other areas of our work, as we did throughout 2024 by using that for the London Communities Programme, the Supporting Community Solution, and our replies to postal inquiries.
My highlight from 2024 was a course we ran called Enhancing Advocacy Through Human Rights. It was a course for independent and statutory advocates, and I've chosen it as my highlight for 2024 as, firstly, I believe it was a very worthwhile course and feedback from it has been very good, and secondly because it was the first course that we have run for a number of years that I'll describe as an open course. And by open course, I don't mean that anyone could join it, as participants did have to apply to join the course. What I mean by an open course is one that was not restricted only to individuals from the same organisation, but one that individuals from various organisations could apply to join. So I think this was a very useful step for us to take, as not every organisation is in a position to arrange their own training course with us, but they might be able to arrange for selected staff to attend an open course of this type. So as I said, that's why this was my highlight for the year, as I felt it enabled us to provide training to individuals who might not otherwise have been able to attend such a course.
My highlight of 2024 has to be our Rights Committee online event about co-production and human rights-based approaches. And it was my highlight because it was a way to celebrate the amazing work of the Rights Committee, but also because it was something different for us. It was an event that we designed with the Rights Committee, and it was a way for us to share our own learning about co-production, what works, what's difficult, and why it's so important. And it was aimed at organisations, public bodies looking to commission co-produced work, but it was also aimed at individuals, advocates who also work as lived experience experts as well. We shared the work of the Rights Committee. We had a really frank discussion around what authentic co-production actually looks like, and we argued the case for why lived experience voices have to be included in human rights-based approaches. And for us, this event was a real way to share our learning, but also to share insights and to support people to take steps in terms of embedding co-production in their work or to work as lived experience experts themselves.
One of my biggest highlights of 2024 at the British Institute of Human Rights has been our work with the Housing Ombudsman Service. Earlier in the year, we delivered a series of human rights staff capacity building workshops for service staff where they could learn a bit more about their human rights legal duties and how they can use human rights in their work. Later on in the year, we worked with the service again to co-design a human rights-based resource that Housing Ombudsman Service staff could use every day in their work to build their confidence around human rights, and so that they can have the confidence to talk about it in their work as well and use it in a practical way.
My top BIHR highlights for 2024 are the workshops with our community partners in London. We're supporting them to have a human rights based approach in their organisations, and we're in year 1. So it's been a great year of introductions to discovering and sharing and learning.
My highlight of 2024 was heading to Geneva with 2 of our lived experience experts, Kirsten and Farouz, who are on our Rights Committee, to give evidence to the United Nations Human Rights Council about the implementation of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights in the UK. It was a really important piece of work that was very kindly funded by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and it meant that the Council got to hear about the everyday reality of human rights in the UK from people who are on the front line and who can tell them the difference that it makes to be able to understand and to claim those human rights and how it can improve outcomes for the better.
Well, as you'll have heard from my wonderful colleagues at BIHR, 2024 has been a year full of many highlights on the practical implementation of the Human Rights Act. I think it's always worth noting that we didn't start 2024 knowing that the Human Rights Act would be secure. We've spent several years trying to ensure that it doesn't get repealed because it's often a political football, and all of the things that my colleagues have talked about in the ways that the Human Rights Act can be used by people and communities and public bodies to make positive social change is often unheard. And we have done a lot of work over a number of years to bring those stories to the fore and to secure the foundation of the Human Rights Act. And we've obviously had a kind of change of political context in the UK, and it's no longer policy to scrap the Human Rights Act, which is very welcome. And that meant that this Human Rights Day on the 10th of December, we were able to bring communities and civil society and parliamentarians and government officials together to actually be in celebration mode and to talk about the difference that the Human Rights Act really does make. And it was a wonderful thing to do, to bring particularly our community partners from our community programme across the UK to share the real life impact of the Human Rights Act, but also for that session to have been opened by the Government Minister for Human Rights, Lord Ponsonby, who was able to share with us the government's approach and focus on human rights, which was very welcome. It's been a number of years since we've had that level of government engagement with human rights work in the UK. So as we reflect on all of the achievements across 2024, I really hope that we are moving into a 2025 where, rather than focusing on having to save the Human Rights Act, we can actually focus on its implementation, because it's that hard graft, that everyday ordinary work that makes the difference for people's lives.